Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. We are reaching you from the nation's capital, Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ila, and we're super excited to have you join us this beautiful Tuesday morning. And if today is your first day on the show, then we would like you to join us every morning on weekdays from 7 to 9 a.m. for the show. The Daybreak Show brings you analysis on latest happenings, featuring news reviews and discussions with experts. Today on Daybreak, Austin Egbe from the Center for Democracy and Development will be joining us to discuss Nigeria's electoral system ahead of the 2023 election. We will also be taking a look at conflicting court orders and the implications of that on our judiciary. We'll be joined by National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association to discuss that. Now, for now, let's take a look at the events of this day in world history. There you have it, the 29th of September in world history, and today is commemorated as the World Heart Day, and also other issues associated with the 29th of September. In 2013, 42 people are killed by Boko Haram in a college attack in Gujuba, Nigeria. In 2013, 16 people are killed by a Syrian army airstrike that hit a secondary school in Raqqa, Syria. Now, that's a very disturbing incident. If some of you can remember the college attack, the gunmen from Boko Haram entered the male dormitory in the College of Agriculture in Gujuba, Yobe State, Nigeria. They killed 42 students and teachers. Gunmen from the terrorist group entered the college at about 1 a.m. local time and opened fire on students while they were asleep. Only the male sleeping quarters were targeted. 42 bodies were recovered by Nigerian soldiers, while 18 injured were transported to Damaturu Specialist Hospital. 2 of the wounded later died. That will bring the number of the people that died to 42. Now, that was a sad incident for some of you that can recall. I recall that it was during the days, I would say, the insurgency was at its peak in the northeast at the time, and these poor boys were attacked while they were sleeping. Very, very horrific experience that Nigerians would not forget, and I pray that the families of those students have recovered. I know it's a loss that may not be, you can hardly recover from, but somehow I hope that they have found comfort and they've been able to move on. Well, we'll take a look at the dailies on Daybreak today again, and we'll be joined by Sunday Michael Ogu, the Deputy Business Editor, Daily Trust newspaper, to review these papers. But before that, let's go on this quick break.
The use of herbs and plants as medicine, popularly known as Agbo, is a tradition that has always been a part of the Nigerian people.
Agbo cures different types of diseases.
For some traditional medicine practitioners and consumers, traditional medicine, or Agbo as they are popularly called, still remain a trusted and preferable alternative.
I inherited this from my late grandmother.
More people need to believe in the potential of the phytomedicinal sector.
From the onset, our origination is from the herbal medicine.
There are other ailments that does not need surgery. I believe natural herbs can do the job very well.
My grandfather stayed 135 years before he died. So we are family of roots.
We're sitting on a multi-billion-dollar gold mine here in Nigeria when we talk about herbal medicines.
However, this does not eradicate the importance and usefulness of modern medicine in the world today.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Right, thank you for staying with us. It's the Dailies now on Daybreak Show, and in the studio with me to review the papers is Sunday Michael Ogu, the Deputy Editor Business in Daily Trust. Good morning, and it's good to have you join us.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here again.
Yes, so let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. You have quite a number of stories there. Below the nameplate there, you'd see electoral bill. Senate reps may clash over e-transmission of results. I recall that they are slated to meet at a conference. And then also you'd have the next story there on page 10 saying Ghana defrauding Nigerians with fake COVID-19 test results. That's according to senators. You'd also see military fighter jet bombs fishermen in Borno. Quite sad there. It's almost very difficult to distinguish between the terrorists and innocent Nigerians these days. The lead story, you would see 2023, expectations, doubts as Jega, Utomi, others mobilize against APC and PDP. Why movement will fail, lawyers are saying. And also you'd find the other writers saying present arrangement favors two parties, dons. They are not a threat. PDP and APC are responding to this move. You would see also the pictorial there showing you the commotion yesterday in Abuja when the members of the Shiite group went on a procession leading to clash between security forces. It caused quite a very, very heavy gridlock yesterday within and around the city. There were different attacks that we are seeing, from the pictures you see very, very quite pathetic scenes. Also, you'd see below that 5 killed as security men dispersed Shiites procession in Abuja. Below that, unremitted taxes, 77 oil and gas firms owe FG 2.7 trillion naira. Cashless policy, court stops CBN's deposit withdrawal levies. Northern elders, Middle Belt Forum disagree over power shift. Well, this discussion has been on since yesterday, but let's take a look at the lead story on the Daily Trust about 2023. A whole lot of conversation is gone up. Yesterday we saw that the northern governors and traditional rulers are, rejecting the position of the southern counterparts. And also today we're seeing what we now recognize in Nigeria as the third force, the movement that is, expected to dethrone the current political structure. What are your thoughts on that? We have people who are skeptical about this move.
Yeah, I think that brings again to the fore some of the conversations we had the last time. I also belong to those people who are a bit skeptical about the intent or the intentions of the people behind it. Of course, you cannot doubt the integrity of the likes of Jega and Utomi, but what our experience in the past has always been is how dedicated are they to this cause, and what is the broad agenda of this cause. Let us not continue to masquerade individual intentions, under these kind of structures, because that is where the failures begin to creep in. Some people will come in for the right intentions, but the moment they understand that there is no transparency around how you then develop what becomes a proper, you are not able to articulate something different from what we currently have. They begin to excuse themselves from those arrangements, So I hope they get it right this time, honestly, because for the sake of every Nigerian, as we say in the case of monopoly, and it is important we begin to get a voice that would challenge the status quo in this country.
Looking at the past, why do you think that it's almost, why do you think that there are doubts, over this move? One will think that this is what majority of Nigerians should think about, given the fact that many people have said, well, these APC and PDP, they are all of the same, we'll be recycling them over and over and all over that. And yet it's been difficult to really bring Nigerians together.
Yeah, so quite a number of reasons. First of all, oftentimes what we see taught for us are people who are unable to find spaces in the PDP and APC. So we are not sure whether they are going to be any different.
They have not been able to find space, or they wouldn't want to join those parties?
Well, it's not a question of not wanting to join. In the past, we have seen a movement that included Galina, but he has had it all in the PDP. With this thought force, we have people like Governor Abdul Fattah, whose property was moved against by AMCON. He was a former two-time governor, in fact, of Kwara State. So the question really would be, what else is he looking for? He was in the PDP, then in the APC, then in the new PDP. So, it is the presence of personalities like this that for some of us, we begin to wonder whether it is not same old, And then, who are the financial backers? Who is bankrolling all of this? What are their agenda beyond power? Beyond just emerging as the party with the presidency, So we want to see a thought force that transcends just gunning for political offices to interrogating every facet of our society, take up issues. What we want is conversations around broad alternatives, and then we take it up from it. Right now, that is not happening.
Do you think that Nigerians should perhaps consider something like crowdfunding, for things like this?
Which is the ideal. That is what we see everywhere around the world. Even with a President Trump, who was a billionaire in his own right, he didn't fund his campaign from his pocket. Those campaigns were funded by people who believed in his ideology. So this whole conversation around TOSFA should not just be about these few persons who are leading the conversation, which is okay by me. We want to see credible individuals across the 36 states, and including the FCT, having this kind of convergence. And therefore, we begin to take them seriously. What we see right now is just an arrangement that seems to be, prominent in Abuja and perhaps Lagos, and that is all that there is to it. So at what point do we begin to cascade these ideas? And how did you even come about this idea? Yes, Nigerians are looking forward to an arrangement like this, but is it a bottom-up arrangement or a top-bottom arrangement? And at what point will they begin to take ownership of it and begin to see what you do? Because grassroots mobilization for ideas like this are really very key. So for me, it would have made sense that they are mobilizing from several states, getting people to key into these ideas, and then the whole conversation around crowdfunding will begin to take shape naturally. The more people are confident about what you are doing, the more likely they are able to say, okay, take this 1,000 widows mite of mine to drive this agenda. If I'm unable to participate physically, at least I can do some financial supporting.
All right, then we'll take a look at other issues. Now, the clash between security forces and the Shiite group is not new to us. We've always seen this. It has always happened. And despite all of this clash, despite the results, the consequence killing of, I don't know whether to say protesters, we keep seeing them coming out again. They are not relenting in any way.
every time these things happen, I have cause to reflect about the quality of training that our personnel actually get. It questions the whole conversation around military-civil relationship. Do security forces even understand the place of civilians? Do they think that they are working for the government is it a government versus the citizen kind of arrangement, or that you swore to protect the right of the citizens, and not to carry out every kind of order at all costs in violation of your primary calling? So you begin to wonder, what kind of people do we have? Because we complain about brutal killing. In your opening remarks, you talked about how people showed up in school and shot brazenly at young stars who were merely sleeping, unprovoked. This is the same thing. Do they understand that the Constitution of this country guarantees peaceful protest?
So it's almost becoming like the ordinary citizen is in between the security forces that are meant to protect him and criminals.
Absolutely.
And receiving heat from both sides.
Absolutely. You know how you'll be driving on Nigerian roads sometimes and you wish there were nobody, that the presence of these security men don't give you any comfort because it opens you up to all kinds of extortions? That is where we are getting to. That is the reality. Yes, these people may have come out to protest. Yes, those protests may have led to some kind of it may have stifled movement and all of that.
From eyewitnesses, it was a procession.
Yes.
There was no any form of protest or any kind of public disorder, that was caused.
Matter of fact, it started 2 days ago, right? And what was the response of our security forces? Shut down the city. I was caught in that trap for 4 hours, 30 minutes, and I was supposed to take my COVID shot yesterday. That was messed up. If I had this appointment this morning, there was no way I would have made it. Imagine an emergency case in that lockdown, simply because you wanted to stop a protest, that you could possibly have reached out to the leaders of this group and understand them and probably create a barrier, perhaps, that will allow these protests go on and allow people go about their daily activities to earn a living. But instead, both the people they were targeting and the innocent Nigerians who were supposed to meet up with other obligations were shut down. A show of force that I really do not understand what it was meant to achieve. And then in the fracas that ensued, you killed 5. And that is all that there is to it, numbers. And today we move on. That's 5 lives that had been cut short, maybe women, maybe children, who basically felt they were trying to speak to some persons in authority about how they feel dissatisfied about how one of their own has been treated. A constitutionally guaranteed action. But what happens? They are killed, lives snuffed out of them. We would hear nothing about who carried out this dastardly act. There are gory images that are flying around on social media. We are not able to confirm the authenticity right now. Yes. But if what we saw with the security men on uniform doing, then they are not any different from the people who refer to as bandits. If you could be flashing a jackknife at a protesting citizen and threatening to stab or even stabbing, what difference are you from the bandit, really? So it calls to question the kind of training they have. Are we recruiting another kind of bandit into uniforms? It calls for worry.
And this, it appears as if, looking at how the whole insurgency in the Northeast started, a lot of people said, well, lessons have not been learned.
Absolutely.
Even with the whole IPOP situation.
Absolutely. We are very terrible with managing civil-military relationship. That is what our history has shown. And like you rightly mentioned, this incident just come and go. Nobody is taking responsibility, and so lessons will not be learned. We have not heard of anybody being fired. You and I know how the Black Lives Matter incidents ended. That trial was public. Chivney was eventually jailed. At least there was a closure for the family of the deceased. Even the world came to understand that justice has been served. Maybe not in the manner that they wanted, but justice has been served. In our own case, these things happen. Nobody is prosecuted. No action. The worst is you hear the military coming out to issue statements like, we will investigate these things and it will not let it lie low. Only a couple of days ago, we saw videos making the rounds of a military female officer brutalizing another female, a corps member on national service at the camp for merely exchanging pleasantry with her own colleague. And she felt this person was a second-class citizen who should not exchange or maintain cordial relationship with a military officer. Where do we get that kind of perception from? You start asking, she shouldn't have been or couldn't have been more than 5-7 years in the service. Where was the place of her 5 years in training at the NDA? Those are the kind of questions we should be. What does the NDA mold out into the society? People who respect citizens' rights while defending them against external attack, or people who come in and add to whatever the citizens are already going through. So it costs to, should be some kind of review. Yes, you are military, you have a different kind of training, but uppermost in that consideration is the protection of the right and liberty of the citizen.
All right, then. Let's take a look at other papers this morning. The Punch newspaper. We have at the very top, Nexim votes 36 billion naira for SMEs export business in 36 states. That's on page 30. You'd also see below that northern governors under fire over silence as Kaduna death toll hits 51. You would also see the next story there saying petrol landing cost now 278 naira, says Moman. Crude reaches $80. That's per barrel. You would also see the lead story there saying FG releases fresh debtors list, November 77. Oil firms owe 2.66 trillion naira. The writer there says firms fail to remit petroleum profit tax, income tax, education tax, VAT, and others. We are partnering EFCC, NFIU to recover 2.66 trillion naira from oil firms, says agency. Also, you would find below the pictures there, it's an insult comparing me to Hush Puppy, says jailed Invictus Obi. You'd see Saraki, Gbemi Shola tackle Kwara governor over demolition of LG library. You'd also find Shiites clash with soldiers. Police in Abuja alleged 8 members killed. At the very bottom, develop Ondo Seaport, decongest Apapa gridlock, Akeredolu tells FG. Police comb waterways, others to free abducted retired general in Lagos. Restructuring, only solution must be done before 2023. Afenifere insists. Now, the conversation about this 2023 election is quite on the very high. We're seeing that virtually on every paper. And we're also expecting to see some kind of review of the Electoral Act, very soon and all of that. It appears that it's almost like a ritual now to review the Electoral Act each time the election period is approaching. Why do you think this is so?
Painfully, it does appear like a Nigerian thing. Yes, electoral acts are reviewed everywhere around the world, but not with the amount of frequency, the kind of frequency, right, that we see in Nigeria. It does appear like once the politicians go to the field and they feel like something in the act seems to have affected us negatively. Oh, we'll wait. By the next election, we've got to fix this in a manner, that will favor us. That's to put it mildly, But like you rightly mentioned, it has become a ritual. We see, but I'm not against fine tuning, if those kind of fine tuning, as we call it, will amount to an advancement of what we currently have. But to be thinking that in 2021 the debate is about not to transmit the results electronically, or asking INEC, that is an independent body guaranteed by the Constitution, to then seek permission from another ministry headed by the government, a serving administration, to take permission to do what it is guaranteed to do, then begin to cause the question of that independence.
All right.
So these are the likely gray areas, and I'm sure that is why we think there's going to be some kind of firewalls, because the Senate are asking for those violations. The House of Representatives have voted for a result to be transmitted electronically. Let's hope that the people's expectations will prevail, when they come to the conference.
All right, another story here of interest is the list released by the federal government, the lead story actually, talking about how 77 oil firms owe 2.66 trillion naira. What do we know so far about this?
Yeah, I think the information, first of all, is coming from the audit of NAITI from a 2019 report. So to think that what you see in that list is even 2 years old means that if we get an updated list for 2020 and perhaps 2021, which is in the 10th month thereabout already, then you may be talking about twice as much, and to think that we'll allow this kind of loopholes at a time when we are shouting that revenues are not enough to meet public expenditure, it's huge. And if you look at the analogy of those laws, especially coming from company income tax, which is like 30% of profits, personal income tax, which is supposed to come from all staffs, and all of that, you are talking about an amount that is equivalent to a fairly between 15 and 20 state governments' budgets put together. And these people are running business here. How do they continue to allow them run business legitimately when they are running short in taxes and the rest of that? Because they are becoming richer by tapping into the resources of your nation and then making you poorer if they do not remit taxes to you, because it is with those taxes that citizens can benefit from having these natural resources and say, okay, we are truly citizens of a resource-based nation, and these benefits we have to show for them, improve infrastructure, power, and all of that. So that's really huge. It's good to know that they said they are tapping on the EFCC and ICC, but I think the government needs to do better than that. If they were doing that, they would not have been worried about raising VAT from 5 to 7.5% and forcing people who are already complying to even pay more.
All right. Let me just quickly run through the Nation newspaper this morning. The stories actually are not any different. Daughter speaks on police chief slain by Lagos mob. You have hooded gunmen abduct ex-military chief in Lekki. Shiite police in Abuja. Bloody clash. Supreme Court Justice Oseji dies at 67. You'd also find the lead story there showing you North's elders to governors negotiate 2023 power shift. The rider to that, more knocks for North's governors from MBF, Ohaneze, Afenifere lawyers. You'd also find the This Day newspaper carrying some of the stories here. It says Buhari, that's at the very top of the This Day newspapers. It says Buhari funding police remains huge challenge for government. You'd see also NAITI, 77 oil companies owing Nigeria 2.6 trillion naira unremitted funds. The lead story says 2023 Ohaneze Roas condemns northern governors, berates PDP. These are some of the stories. Like I said, they are not any different. Talking about funding for the police, the president is saying that it's becoming, it remains a challenge for us. Is that why the police system is still, kind of not having a good time?
You could say that. I was looking at a report some time ago. The Fire Service Department of New York has as much budget as the capital vote of Nigeria. But that's New York. Funding is a challenge, but what we are beginning to see in Nigeria is not a bigger challenge to even the quality of personnel. I mean, if you take somebody who is ill-trained, badly trained, and you armed him, what you have just armed is somebody who will go and cause the kind of situations that we see. So Nigerians are even asking questions around what they have done with the current votes, whatever they are getting. You know, it is those kind of things that would justify more. You know, you see police vehicles break down. You call them, odd hours, they are not available to move. We know these things boil down to funding, but how efficient have they been even with the little that has been given? It also speaks to the whole call by even the states for a state police. So if you can't do the funding alone, evolve a system that will allow the states, you know, float structures that they can also take part of their own allocations to fund. And that eases the pressure on the federal government to do the kind of, because to be honest, the police ratio to civilians in Nigeria, it's very huge. We have less than 300,000 policemen in a country of 202 million people. That is grossly inadequate. More can be done, but if there are no funds to do more, then evolve ways to allow states run some kind of structures that eases this pressure on you.
Well, I think that says it all. We thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
The pleasure is mine.
The newspaper review this morning here. We've been speaking with Sunday Michael Ogu. He is the Deputy Business Editor, Daily Trust newspaper. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at our first discussion on the show today. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
African fabric is finding its way to the global stage. But Nigeria is losing out on big textile spenders as the local industry faces imminent extinction.
Behind me is the Arewa Textile Mill, established in 1963 and eventually closed down in 2004.
From over 180 textile mills in the 70s, only about 25 mills now operate at less than 40% capacity.
I'm an employee of Arewa Textile PLC before it closed. After a month, I was just like a madman.
In a day, they laid off 4,500.
The once thriving sector struggles to compete with an annual import of $4 billion.
Smuggling is the order of the day.
For manufacturers, we cannot compete.
We visit the nation's textile hubs to seek answers to why the sector has failed to return to its glory days despite government's intervention.
Thank you for staying with us. It's Daybreak on Trust Television, and we've been having quite a lot of discussions here. And if you're just joining, then you are joining not at the right time because we started much earlier, but I would say you can still catch up with what we have to offer this morning. Now, Nigerian voters will again go to the polls in less than 20 months from now to elect new leaders at various levels. The existing legal framework guiding conduct of election in Nigeria is the Electoral Act 2010 as amended. There have been several attempts to further amend the act, but nothing concrete came out of it. Recently, the National Assembly passed electoral amendment bill with little modification that generated controversies around electronic transmission of election results. Kaduna State recently conducted local council's election using electronic voting machines. Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) also used bimodal machine to authenticate eligible voters in by-election it conducted in Delta State. What is required to strengthen the electoral system to nurture democratic governance in our country? We have joining us Austin Aigbe from the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, to discuss this topic with us. Good morning, and it's good to have you join us.
Good morning, thanks for having me.
Yeah. The lawmakers seem to have ended in a deadlock when they try to come to an agreement as to what mode of transmission of results should be. And we've heard from INEC, they said, well, we are capable. Some of the lawmakers said that INEC do not have the capacity, or rather, they will have to seek or consult the NCC to be able to finalize on that. Meanwhile, the INEC have said that we have done it in several elections. We are capable of doing that. That is generating controversy. Where does the CDD stand on this?
Well, thanks for bringing up this topic. It's a topic for the moment, topic that is really generating a lot of conversation, maybe not controversy. I think, just to put it in perspective, it's the Senate that doesn't want electronic transmission results. However, the House of Reps already agreed. So that is why the deadlock in court is going to be resolved by the conference committee, which has already been set up. The Senate already did that. They've set up their own conference committee. Once the House of Reps does their own committee, they will have to then meet to look at those areas. So at the civil society level, we are proposing some very, some very good proposal in terms of there are certain clauses that the Senate proposed that is better for Nigerian states. While the House of Reps, there are also some proposals that we think that the conference committee can look at that and then harmonize. For example, the Senate proposes electronic device to be introduced into election, electronic device to be introduced into the election without necessarily quoting the name of the electronic device, as we used to have, like you say, smart card reader or ZipPad, what we now have, like you mentioned, the BVAS. So you don't have to write that in the law. You just say electronic device. That's the Senate. For the House of Reps, in clause 52, that's where the bulk of the argument is, and that's where CDD stands. The clause 52, by the House of Reps, is saying that INEC can decide on any means of transmission of results, which means INEC can decide, because it's actually INEC's decision to make and not the NCC's decision. Again, when we subject INEC, that is supposed to be an independent National Electoral Commission, you subject that their decision to the National Communication Commission, it becomes questionable. How do I mean? INEC is a product of the Nigerian Constitution. The NCC is a product of the Parliament. It's an act of Parliament that established the NCC. The Constitution established INEC. The same way the Constitution empowered the National Assembly, established the National Assembly. It's like someday the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will say that the National Assembly decision will be subject to the 36th state parliament before a decision can be taken. You have reduced that power given to the National Assembly by the Constitution. And I think what the National Assembly need to do is what they already started doing, which is a normal, when there's conflict in the proposal passed by the House of Reps and the Senate, they will set up a conference committee to harmonize both. And that's exactly what's already been happening. So we are calling on the House of Reps to quickly set up theirs, but we are from CDD point of view, the clause 52 by the House of Reps is the way to go. Maybe in the course of this conversation, we'll try to explain why it matters for us to do the electronic voting, which has been agreed. Both House, the Senate, and the House of Reps did agree on electronic voting. We have passed that stage. The only part of controversy or contention is the transmission of results.
So, what are some of the gray areas that you think needs to be addressed in our electoral laws to be able to have an effective electoral process coming 2023?
Fantastic. Let's go down memory lane. There was a time in this country where people were still voting, and they could be deciding who had won an election. In 2007, after now late President Musa Yar'Adua came to power, he acknowledged that the election that brought him to power was saddled with irregularities, and he made a decision, fantastic decision, to clean up the electoral process. And one of the decisions, or the outcome of that decision, was the setting up of the Waste Committee. Very fantastic committee. And the committee proposed some very strong recommendations, including the appointment of the INEC chair, including some electoral regime that will improve on our system. Those reforms did not find their way into the act until gradually one of the proposals to this electoral amendment that is ongoing, the Electoral Amendment 2021, Electoral Act 2021 bill, was taken from the Waste Committee, even though not all, but at least we are going somewhere. Why do we need electronic voting and transmission? We have had a lot of arguments, strong argument you may call it. There is no internet in the country, all of that and all of that. So let me put it here. The cost of running an election in this country, if we don't take care, we'll borrow to run 2023 election. The money spent in printing ballot papers in this country is enough to feed a state, maybe a day or two. Let me exaggerate. Let me paint just the small corner of it. Taking 2019 as an example. There were 84 million plus registered voters on the voter register in 2019. Usually, INEC will print more than the people, just in case there are ballot paper that is not good. You know, there are usually errors. So INEC is not God. There is no perfection in printing any product. Even your iPhone, if you have 100 iPhone, the possibility that there's one that will be defective is there. INEC will need to print like 100. In case even the voter who made a mistake with the ballot paper can actually change it, is allowed. Is within the purview. Let's assume INEC printed 100 million ballot paper. 84 plus registered voters printed addition just to create room for those lapses. 100 million. If you look at the figures that was declared in 2019 election, President Buhari won with about 15 million, above 15 million votes. Atiku vote was about less than 12 million. Let's say 12 million. Then all the others was less than a million. 15, 12, and maybe 1 is less than 30 million. Which means we printed 100 million ballot papers. 30 million were used. Now make a picture. 70 million were not used. Now let's try to monetize that 70 million ballot papers. One ballot paper may cost INEC. I don't have an idea, but let me give you what the ballot paper look like. The ballot paper is a currency level ballot paper. It is to avoid manipulation by politicians. Mm-hmm. So the ballot paper for polling unit 1 is not it's the same ballot paper, but there's a code on each polling unit that you cannot take this polling unit ballot paper told the next polling unit is to avoid politicians years ago, 2007, 2011, that people carry ballot paper from one polling unit, take it to another to print and all of that. And that was why, if you observe after a while, there's been a drop in ballot box stuffing because it's no longer working. You can't take polling unit ballot paper to another. It will be detected. And they don't print it in this country. If you remember in 2019, it was logistical challenge that led to the postponement of the election. Midnight to the election. Materials had not got to far north, far south because of the logistic challenge in bringing them on board. Let's assume, by mere philosophy, to say each ballot paper, because you are printing more, economics say more, the more you print, the less the price. Let's assume that each ballot paper will cost INEC 50 naira. Imagine 50 naira times 100 million. I don't know the maths, but people listening will know the maths. You can do it. You have your computer, you have your phone. Now let's break it down to say it is 1 naira, because that will be easy for my mathematics. 50 naira, 4 ballot paper per one. It means that we printed ballot paper for 100 million. Right? 100 million ballot paper, 100 naira, 100 million. 30 million were used. 70 million were not used. If you then try to look at that holistically, you find out that you actually burnt, you wasted 70 million naira.
So there's a problem with high cost of running election and all of that.
Because of the politicians who will always have a way to manipulate the process. So the more you get sophisticated, the more you try to reduce the manipulation. And you need money to improve on the sophistication.
So you feel that this electronic voting system will, drop the costs?
So over time, people may look at, but the cost, what about the cost of the machine? The cost of the machine is important to note. Let's assume too, that in each polling unit where you have one machine, because you are not going to have two, or maybe you may have two, but it has to be somewhere, but you are not going to have two readily standing, because right now we have about 150-something thousand polling units across the country, and INEC may go for like 200,000 device. Over time, because it's going to be like a sunk cost. Once you procure them, all you needed to do maybe is to update the apps, just like your phone or whatever. The cost of that procurement is constant over a period of time. So when we use this 2023 election, don't forget, there will be immediately Kogi and Bayelsa election. The cost of those ballot paper goes into that cost of procuring that machine. Afterwards, we are going to have Ondo and Edo election. The cost of those ballot paper goes into that machine. Afterwards, you're going to have Anambra election, which is coming up in about 40 days in Anambra State. The cost of that will go in. They say we're going to have Ekiti and Osun just before the 2027 election. So over a period of time, you're going to see a nosediving of the cost of election. Again, that is for electronic voting. We are taking care of ballot papers. What about transmission? The Senate is saying there's no need for transmission, just vote is fine. Then you then transmit. Where do you now take that to? Where are you going to? You now write results. You tabulate, you automate, which is very good because that automation is very important. Just before I go ahead on that, let me quickly tell you why automation is important. If you pay attention to the ICC International Conference Center where they were returning candidates or they're going to declare the national election, there was one professor who was battling with figures. We have passed that stage. We have passed that stage where we need to begin to look at 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2. Systems are taking over that. Put them, let the system automate them. You just click on sum up and it gives you total. It reduces the time. Time is money. The time that our poll officials spend trying to calculate and cancel and rewrite, and if sometimes you see election result, you will weep for Nigeria. You will weep for our young folks who did the job. What are they doing? They write 20 + 20 is 48. Oh, 48. No, it's 50. It cancel 50. No, it's 30. Did you blame them? No. Election anxiety is there. Tension is there. Have you ever
all
been
kinds of human errors?
All kinds of. In fact, have you ever been in an examination hall where it is 1 minute to pens up, and they say pens up, and you have not finished your work? Do you know at that moment the kind of urine will greet you? You start folding your leg. It's not, that thing did not. It come by your. It just come in after you submit. The thing just goes off. I've had occasion where people in an examination hall, when they say pens up, the next is please help me to spell it. Help me to spell it. It's spelling the it, but it doesn't know because the tension is there. Election situation is like that, my brother. I've seen it.
So sad.
I've seen it.
Yes, it's natural.
It's a natural phenomenon.
Yes, yes.
Let's not put our young folks under that situation. Let's stop blaming them. Do you know the enormous work that they look around them? They are not from the area where they are conducting those polls. These are young folks, young core members. They look around them. They see some kind of fierce-looking young men who are waiting. Okay. The fear will not make them do the wrong thing. In my opinion, I'm not making any case for them. Now, that is the way you transfer those errors from the polling unit level. You transfer it to the collation center. You transfer it to the state level. You then transfer it to the national level. That's when you saw the professor.
At every level, there is likely to be also another error.
They keep making the errors. And that was what the professors was battling with when they were in the full glare of the global community. Everybody was watching. A professor was calculating, using ruler. Can I have light? They were bringing light. It was not the professor's fault. Garbage in, garbage out. That's what the system is. The errors carried over must be resolved. And this is where we had a problem eventually. If you remember when Professor Mamu Yakubu was declaring the presidency, I told you earlier that there were 84 million registered voters. At the end of the day, when that declaration was made, they eventually told us that it was 81 million registered voters. So what happened to about 3 million votes?
All right.
Error of computation.
Yes. All right. We will be taking a quick break now. And then when we come back, we'll look at other concerns as far as the issues of electoral process in Nigeria is concerned. Issue of funding is also very, very critical. So we'll be taking a look at that. Please.
The use of herbs and plants as medicine, popularly known as agbo, is a tradition that has always been a part of the Nigerian people.
Agbo cures different type of diseases.
For some traditional medicine practitioners and consumers, traditional medicine, or agbo as they are popularly called, still remain a trusted and preferable alternative.
I inherited this from my late grandmother.
More people need to believe in the potential of the phytomedicinal sector.
From the onset, our origination is from the herbal medicine.
There are other ailments that does not need surgery. I believe natural herbs can do the job very well.
My grandfather stayed 135 years before he died. So we are a family of roots.
We're sitting on a multi-billion-dollar gold mine here in Nigeria when we talk about herbal medicines.
However, this does not eradicate the importance and usefulness of modern medicine in the world today.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Here we've been discussing quite a number of issues. We had newspaper reviews, and now we are taking a look at our first discussion, talking about how to strengthen the electoral system in Nigeria. And we have in the studio a member of the CDD in Abuja, and he's been sharing his thoughts with us. Now, let's take a look at other angles to this conversation. Issues of funding, issues of, legal framework in terms of court orders, the tribunal and all of that, deciding issues of election and all of that. They have been quite contentious issues. Beginning with the issue of funding. Recently, we passed the Not Too Young to Run bill, and we said, okay, people of so-and-so age can vote, can participate. But the issues about how to raise funds, because of how the electoral process has been monetized in Nigeria, makes it very difficult for some of the young chaps to participate. Do you think that our electoral amendments takes care of some of these issues?
Yes, no, but it depends on the people's perception. For example, and let me begin by saying that election all over the world is not cheap. Let's not make it like election is a cheap endeavor. You can just jump in one money without preparing for it. It's an investment in quote. Let me call it business because you have to put money. Nowhere in the world. And the more the higher you contest, the more money you require. For example, the new act has made proposal for 50 billion naira mass for the presidential candidate, up from 1 billion naira. And if you look at the reality of today, $1 is over 500 naira. So if you then try to see what you spend the money on, I'll just give you a small picture. Let's stay with the presidency. For a young chap, because it's allowed with the law, and you just want to contest election, you have to count your cost. These are the costs. The one that can be written down, not the other ones. You go to burial ceremony, you donate, you go to birthday. Those are campaign opportunity. Mm-hmm. Now there are 157,000 plus polling units. And as a president, and as a presidential candidate, you need to have one agent minimum in all of these 157,000 polling units. Give and take, you are going to give each of them 10,000 naira to help supervise the process. 10,000 naira for feeding is not like you are paying. 10,000 naira for food and all of that, like PDM or DSA, just to sustain you for that day. Do your maths. 157,000 times 10,000 naira. That is one day. After that event, it moved to the collation center. At the collation center, I can't remember, I think 8,809 wards in this country. And you are going to have your agent in all of these 8,000 plus collation center wards. You need to have them eat something. So assume you are giving them 20,000 because that's a higher level. You then move from there to local government. We have 774 local government in this country. Assume you give your party agent there 30,000 times 774. You then move to the state. 36 of them, including Abuja, including FCT, 37. Assume you are going to give that your agent 50,000 naira. This is like the minimum we can think about. All of those costs are not counted with when you travel from Abuja to Lagos to campaign and mobilize people to your campaign venue. Yeah, those costs are not part of all those. You go around the 36 states. You need them. They are not part of the advert you put on Daily TV, Trust TV. They are not part of it. You don't run advert for politicians for free. You charge them. And they may go more than your station to other stations. They are not part of the ones that go on newspapers. They are not part of the ones that go on billboards that you see all over. You travel all over the states, and they are not part of those posters. Election is really expensive. And if you
not to talk about the ticket.
Okay. You're not talking about what you went through at the party primary level. The cost of buying the nomination form, 20-something million or thereabout for one of the parties. Those costs, if you aggregate all, if they give you form for free, You know, those days we used to make agitation for free funds for women. We discovered that it was a worse decision we took. Why? When you pay for your form, I paid for my form, and the other lady didn't pay, she was giving for free. When it's time to negotiate, she will not be on table. Ah, come on, you want to give free form to Abel Waka, make we talk. Yeah, sir, I can pay for you. We negotiate. That person that didn't pay wouldn't be on the table of negotiation. So you count your cost when running an election. And it's very important that young people, I also advised, that why don't you build your edge in an incremental form? I've seen people win House of Assembly with 1,500 votes, with even 800 votes, House of Assembly in this country, in some location. Why don't you hold your constituency at the state level strong? Even if you contest under a party that is not known at the national level, you will win. We have a case in Ebonyi. A young lady, she pulled out from the party at the state level because the ticket didn't get to her. Somebody gave her ticket eventually, and she ran for the position, and the youth, everybody, the whole community was with her. She won the election under a party that was not known at the national level because the people know her. And when that happens, you will spend less money. Because people will tell you, now our person, come, if you come here, come rig election, we go, you know, there's a way people protect your vote when they have a stake in you.
You could even enjoy crowdfunding from the people as well.
Exactly. People will tell you, madam, don't worry. Me, I go be your agent. Don't give me money. I go bring my food, come. You have saved 10,000. No, don't worry. I will take care of 10 observers, 10 agents for you. And you find out spending less. That's because you are known in the locality. If you move from that locality to the state level, it's no longer the same story. Most of the people at this other side wouldn't know you. They want to collect your money. So the more you move to House of Reps, to Senate, to the presidency, the more your expenses goes up. And for you to start, even if you have all the billions in the world, you don't also want to burn them. You need to be strategic in the way you spend. If it's House of Assembly or House of Reps or Senate, knowing your constituency, that's what matters. Knowing your job political zone, knowing your senatorial district, that's what matters. And knowing that you need to set up some machineries that help to win an election. Because on election day, you are going to be in one place, but you need to be represented. Or, what I usually say, you need to be replicated across all the various locations. That's the way to win election. You can win an election very cheaply, but that's a conversation for another day.
All right. Now, over time, we've seen how court orders or court injunctions affect the electoral process in Nigeria. Do you think that that's a problem that urgently needs to be dealt with, and how can we do that?
That's already been done. Thanks for that, for bringing that up. Recently, taking the example of Anambra, although Anambra is not new in Anambra. In 2017 election, the court order floods the electoral process. INEC is now saddled with the problem of knowing who to choose. Today, INEC is putting somebody's name under a party. In 24 hours, there's another order asking that person should be removed. So INEC kept removing and changing, and the people don't even know who. Our system, if we need to get that out, after working on our electoral act and it works and it's perfect in a way, we need to then turn our searchlight to the political parties. That's the place where candidates, our leaders, are selected. If we don't have an effective selection system within a party, it impacts on the general selection process. If a party nominates somebody who is not good with anything, but he has all the money in the world and is able to buy everybody in the party, and that person also buy everybody in the country, and he wins, you are going to be in a quagmire. The parties need, the internal party system in this country need to be upgraded. The crisis with our democracy is that the political parties are the weakest link to strengthen our democracy. Somebody decamped from another party today, joined another party. All the people who has been in this party, serving this party, working for this party, the moment this guy decamps, automatically it becomes the beehive.
The leader of the party.
The leader of the party. there's no reward system at the party level. And that's, again, people say there's also no ideology. But the parties have said, no, there's ideology. Ideology is to win election. So the party system in Nigeria need to move beyond just winning election. If you're in opposition to the government in power, you have a role to play in putting that party in power in perspective, in reminding them, in pushing on their face their promises, their campaign model. They have a platform where they were campaigning election. In electricity, this is what I would do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to improve the economy. I'm going to fight corruption. I'm going to fight insecurity. Opposition parties elsewhere, maybe so taking a clue from maybe the UK, you have another government. What do they call them? Like a sub-government. So there's a government in power. The opposition party runs their own government. So you have a minister of Foreign Affairs. A shadow government. Yes, you're right. They have a shadow government. When the Minister of Foreign Affairs makes a decision, the shadow government Minister of Foreign Affairs counters or support or bring fact to say that what you are going to do has an implication, and this is the implication in the future. By the time that decision is made, like Brexit, for example, when the time that decision is made and it goes up to the point that that decision made by the government in power fails, everybody turns to the opposition party. They were right. It improves the opposition party's credential and popularity. But in this country, we fight. We criticize without fact. Opposition party just make comments that are not even verified most of the time. Make comment with fact. And you let your proposal target the resolution and not to begin to, hey, you are not doing this well. What is the alternative that it ought to have done? That's what makes you an opposition party.
So do you think that this kind of attitude sort of hampers the way in which policies are made and sometimes, perceived by even members of the public?
Of course. Of course, people tell you, right now in this country, you have a party in power, you have a major opposition. There are 18 political parties right now in this country. So we assume that all the 17 ought to be opposition, but there's always a major opposition party. We have a major opposition party, and if you go around the street and ask, what is the role of that major opposition party? They don't know what they do. It's almost like you are not speaking to the people. You are speaking to the government in power. You are attacking in a way that the people are not following you. And when the government in power make policies, it tries to buy the people, to undermine the opposition. And that's exactly what when we make decisions, people shout. You say, you are willing.
So there have been a lot of conversations about 2023 election. We've been seeing meetings by southern governors, northern governors here and there. Some are saying, look, it's time for power to shift to the south. Some are saying, no, we reject that. We wouldn't let that happen and all of that. Others are saying, well, it's against the Constitution to say you want to shift power to any zone. But we know that some of the political parties, they have zoning in their constitution. But our own constitution as a federal republic does not take care of this issue of rotation of power and all of that. And some people are saying that, look, for the unity of Nigeria and for the coexistence of Nigeria, that needs to ensure that happens. Where does the CDD stand on that?
When people sometimes argue about some things not in the Constitution, you feel a bit awkward. You don't have to write everything in the Constitution. There are constitutions that are very light. One day, our Constitution will be as high as these two, because we want to write every bit on it. There are some mutual understanding that goes, but I'm not making case for that. The reason why people are agitating for rotational presidency and all of that leadership is because of the way the Nigerian system is run. We are supposed to be a federal republic of Nigeria, but the way Nigeria is run, we are a central government of Nigeria. Everything happens at the center, and it's not helping the Nigerian state. When people talk about true federalism or what is called federalism, is that there are contributions from the state to the center, and not the center giving to the state. But in Nigeria, everybody across the federation comes to Abuja to cut one national cake. They call it revenue allocation, formula, and sharing. I am against that as a person. But for CDD as an organization, We feel that to resolve this country's crisis, we must truly revert back to the constitution that federalized Nigeria. So we are not even operating federalism in Nigeria, and we are talking about zoning is not in the constitution. Federalism is in the constitution, but it's not operated. What is federalism? Federalism means that the 36 states, including FCT, that are federated to the national, has some level of powers that it runs with and makes some royalty to the center. You know why our governors most of the time are very, in quote, I'm not saying they are lazy, but that's what it means. They are unable to generate internal revenue from their state because they know there's one money that comes from the national. So you just stay idle, waiting for the next month. When it's FAC, I think FAC they call it.
How would you respond to the conversation about VAT, collection of the value-added tax? There are cases about that by Rivers State government.
That is part of the problem of federalism. Now VAT, the argument posed, even though we have not had time to fact check those figures that came out, that a state, for example, contribute less and earn more in VAT and all of that. This is where the implication will be. Why VAT is supposed to be a federal thing, I support it, that to be a federal thing, is because if you you got goods from abroad and it landed in Lagos, Lagos State will take their VAT because it's not state-based. If you move from there to Ogun, if you go through Ogun, or you go through Ondo, in fact, you must go through Ogun. Ogun will stop you and collect their VAT. You move to Ondo, maybe you are coming to Abuja, or you move to Ekiti, or wherever you go through, each state you go, they will collect their VAT. So you'll be spending more as a citizen. So what do you need to do? That's the essence of that royalty. When you collect your tax at a state level, and that's actually the model behind VAT, collect the tax at the state level with federal supervision, then the state takes a percentage of that contribution, then sent to the center. What if we mean? If Rivers has raised 2 naira and it's 50-50, it takes 1 naira, it sends 1 naira to the center. Kano makes 50 kobo, it takes 25 kobo and sends 25 kobo to the center. We won't have all of this challenge. There will be a level of federal, then you now have a federal that, no, this is a federal payment, then it goes to another account that can be then shared across the board. Because the port is a federal facility, not a Lagos State facility. Or there are certain federal facilities, MTN, Glo, Airtel, if they pay their VAT in Lagos. So are you not going to tell me in Zamfara that if I use my phone credit in Zamfara, the Zamfara government will not get the VAT that is paid to Lagos? Of course, no. That's why this country must be run in a way that ensures some level of mutual collaboration and a level of contribution by all, not grabbing at the center. Professor Peter Eke said that the problem that we have in this country, of course it happened with Ibori, our thief versus their thief, is that there is a primordial and civic culture that has enabled corruption and a systemic challenge. What am I saying? If money comes from the under and goes up, the people can actually see that this is what we are contributing to the center to remain as Nigeria. But it's like Nigeria is giving you money to remain. It cannot work. And Chinua Achebe said the center is no longer working. We must devise. We are in the process of constitutional review now. The senators and House of Rep members to think, executive should think about these things. If we want to run an effective Nigeria, we must truly federalize. We must avoid all. And some people have said, but some states will not have money. And I said, no, it's not true. Nasarawa State has enormous resources on the ground. Nobody's tapping it. You know why? Because we collect money from the national level. So there's no need to divide. So what will the federal government do? Having collected money from all its royalty, the federal government will not target states that are less endowed and support them to grow. Connecticut in the U.S. is a small state without large revenue compared to New York.
Okay.
But the government supports Connecticut to upscale.
All right. Well, we have to end this discussion here at this point because of our time. Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning and sharing your thoughts with us on these issues. We've been speaking with Austin Aigbe from the Center for Democracy and Development, and he's been sharing with us very, very impactful thoughts here on the show. Now, we'll go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at other discussions. Now, we talk about conflicting court orders. This is affecting our election, and not just the election, but any other system in the country. We'll take a look at that, and the National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association joins us after this. Please stay with us. Right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust Television, and if you're just joining, then you have not missed in its entirety. We still have a lot coming on. We have in the studio the Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association. But before we introduce him proper, let's take a look at what we are looking at. Senior lawyers are unanimous that conflicting ex parte orders from courts of coordinate jurisdiction only create confusion in the judiciary. Recently, various courts gave opposing orders in respect of position of the suspended national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. The same scenario played out when former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC Adams Oshomole, was removed until an appellate court made pronouncement in the matter. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko, had to summon chief judges in some states and involved the National Judicial Council on disciplining the erring judges. The Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, is also keen into this by plans to discipline its members involved in obtaining ex parte orders for political expediency. We have in the studio National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, and he is in the person of Dr. Rafulu Ernest Nduka. Good morning.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, first let's begin with these issues of conflicting orders. One would think that we shouldn't be having this happen. Why are we having it happening then?
Well, I must say that it's really a fallback of what you see in the society right now. One of the things or the mistake that people make is to believe that the legal profession and maybe the judiciary is actually immune to what is going on in the society. But the legal profession is an offshoot of the society, so it's normal when you have some of these things going on. And we should also understand that the parties, the litigants that make use of the courts, they would always approach legal practitioners to help represent them in ventilating whatever kind of grievances they feel. And so the natural place to go to is the courts. And so it's natural to always expect that, so even if when somebody has, what would you call it, maybe whatever kind of desire, be it right or wrong, that has to do with maybe politics, whatever other kind of desire in business world and any other aspect of human endeavor, the natural thing to do is to go to the courts so that he will get some legitimacy to whatever he's angling for. And so that's why you find these things happening. And so when these things happen, for example, it's difficult to compel a government institution to take an action which may not be what they want to do, except you have another authority impressing it on them to do that. For example, I don't want to discuss politics, but INEC would naturally not want to do the bidding of everybody in a political party. So the natural thing to do is that those people would approach an institution that can order INEC to do whatever they want. Okay, so that's why you find these things happening in the space, the legal space at the moment.
So yeah, so as the judicial arm of government, shouldn't there be some kind of, regulating kind of a body that ensures that, look, there's a case on this matter in court. Why are we having it in a separate court?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why the NBA and several well-meaning Nigerians, senior members of the bar, have a problem with what is going on. The thing is that this is a normal human enterprise, and it comes with its own challenges. Now, we are not robots, so you can't say this is the way it must go before you can maybe approach the court for whatever. Now, so but there are precedents. You have the rules there. And that's why when things go wrong, or, we start seeing some of these things happening, people start wondering what is going on with the system, because we should know better. The legal practitioners should know better. We talked about the issue of jurisdiction, for example. Before you approach the court to ask for an order, for example, the court should have jurisdiction to deal with the matter. You can't, for example, go to maybe my business in Anambra State. I would approach a court in Gombe. It doesn't make sense. It's not even not within their territorial jurisdiction to do that. Okay, so that's because we have precedents. The laws are already set. That's why people are angry, or people are not really happy about what is going on. But then when you talk about regulation, that's part of the reasons why. When you talk about regulation, the aspect of regulation that I want to see is that when people err, because there are laws already, when somebody goes against those rules, then the natural thing to do is to call the person to order and say, this is not the right thing to do. And so if there are maybe some kind of punishment for that, even though it may not be a punishment, but some reprimanding of the parties who have gone astray, then definitely should be meted on them.
Do you think that this is a product of corruption in the system?
Well, in as much as I don't want to sound, give a verdict one way or the other, because when you talk about corruption, it could mean a lot of things. But I won't want to say corruption in that sense, but I would say that it is an ill in the society. It shows that something is wrong. Okay, because when you talk about corruption, there are a lot of factors that can lead to that. Maybe money is changing hands. And as lawyers, you just don't use words that way. You must be sure of whatever you're saying, okay? So, but apart from that, it is an abnormally. It is something that is wrong going on.
So you don't think that some judges have been compromised?
Well, now the thing is this. I don't speak for the judges, okay? And I'm careful not to make comments that would disparage the judicial arm of government. Our judges are doing well, I must confess. But then definitely you cannot have every, even, in the Bible, for example, you had the apostles, and you still had Judas, okay? And so the bottom line is that definitely everybody will not be on top of the game. There are people who would actually be doing some wrong things there. Like I said again, everybody or legal practitioners and every other person who's an actor there is an offshoot of the society. Okay, you cannot have a terrible society and you expect every other person or maybe the legal profession to be saintly. Okay, I'm not trying to make, but okay, that's the reality on ground.
Okay, so some times ago, few years ago, we saw there was sort of some kind of clampdown on some judges, by security forces. Then this led to a huge outcry, by the members of the judiciary. You cannot arrest judges like that. Yes. There are procedures, there are bodies that are meant to discipline judges and all of that. What's the role of the NBA or the NJC in this, instance in terms of making sure that there's discipline in the judicial arm of government?
Okay, well, first of all, that period was a sad commentary on the nation, because whenever we look at what is plaguing the Nigerian society, that's part of what is plaguing the Nigerian society. Where, for example, now let me look at it from not just a lawyer's perspective, but maybe the business perspective. I don't think if I'm a foreign investor, I want to come into a country where the judges' houses can be broken into in the dead of the night. It speaks volumes. Now, if I'm a foreign investor, for example, and I want to invest, if I have a problem, the people I will run to or the institution I will run to is the courts. And so when they're not protected, okay, it means that I too will not be protected when I run into trouble, because these are the people I will run to. Now, but that's it. It was a very sad commentary on the nation. Now, but when you come down to judges, like I said, I don't speak for the judges, and I won't try to do that too. But we have the NJC and the Judicial Council. One of their job is to maybe discipline erring judges. Okay, and so when there are issues, normally, even in fact, what happens and maybe in courts when they sit and all, people write petitions to NJC and they deal with the matter. The reason why one of the reasons, not just the reason, but one of the reasons why people had an issue with what happened then was because the procedures were not followed. Before you start, maybe push out maybe a judge, for example, to be dealt with the police, the procedures have to be followed. The NJC has to deal with the matter first. was he wrong in what he did? Okay, is there something showing that what he's accused of was actually right? So by the time he's removed from, the NJC can now remove him from office, okay? Now, when that happens, then he's now open. You can now say, okay, the police, you can go on and do whatever you want to do with him. And so we have the NJC, and I can tell you, to the best of my knowledge, they're doing a pretty good job over it. I know that on this particular issue, I know that the CJN has actually, I know that he had a meeting with the chief judges of the different states where those conflicting orders came from. And I know that he has trickled down to, I cannot, like I said, I'm not a judge, so I can't talk for them. I don't know how far they've gone, but I know that they're doing something about it. And I think that part of the reason is to instill some order in this. So I think we're happy with that.
Okay, so what's the meeting point between the NJC and the NBA as far as the issues of making sure that there's discipline in the judicial arm? What role is it playing? Because, I mean, conflicting orders are not new to our system. They've been going on until recently, where we are seeing now, you know, an action being taken. In the past, what has been happening, and why haven't we seen this kind of action taken on, you know, judges?
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is that it's more pronounced because it's political matters are really involved. So many times there are times that lawyers must have written petitions, and people do not it may not make the headline news. I remember there was I think the former CJ of Enugu State at some point. He had an issue, and at some point the NJC had to intervene and remove him from office, and, you know, even asked the police to go on with their investigation and all. And so now, but currently, with the current trend now, like I said, we have the NJC, we have the NBA. Now, the NBA deals with the legal practitioners. The truth of the matter is that the NBA or the lawyers have a role to play in whatever must have happened, because a judge does not just make an order just for the fun of it. Before a judge can pronounce, that's why they don't really talk in public or go for interviews and all, because they make their pronouncement in their judgments. And so before a judge maybe writes his opinion or pronouncement on an issue, you must have come to him, bringing your matter before him and asking him, please make this pronouncement one way or the other. And that's where the lawyers come in, okay? And that's so that's why the NBA is also taking, if there was a time, immediately after this happened, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Olumide Abata, released a press statement on that issue, and saying that the NBA would take some steps, okay, to deal with the legal practitioners who have been a part of this whole thing. We also, I remember too, that one of the matters came up to the Court of Appeal in Awka, and the presiding judge, Justice Nwosu Iheme, also made some comments over it, even in her judgment, and was saying that they should be referred to the disciplinary committee, because lawyers play a major role in that. I may not talk about some of the things that may have gone on behind the scene, but you know that lawyers bring in different antics to get whatever they want from the courts. It may be their oratory skills, it may be pulling a wool on the eyes of the court, for example, not giving all the facts of the matter before the court. So it could actually play on that. Let me not talk about other things, okay? So that's where the lawyers have a role in the whole thing, and that's where NBA, the only thing NBA can do is in relation to the lawyers who play a part in these things. Because one of the, you know, the sections or the things that make us a little bit unhappy is number one, for example, ex parte applications. You know, ex parte applications, they are wonderful rules that are already there in the rules of court. And the idea is that when there is an extreme urgency, you make use of that. But not when you want to wreak havoc somewhere. So it speaks volumes when somebody goes to court, without putting the other party on notice, asking for something that could disrupt something else. For example, maybe an election in a state or something. So it speaks volumes about that. If the other party is put on notice, okay, then naturally he will come talking about his own side. So these are part of the things that that has made NBA feel, oh, this is not the right thing to do. But then our concentration is on the lawyers, the legal practitioners, and we are taking steps towards
All right, we'll go on a quick break now, and then when we come back, you tell us some of the steps that you are taking in terms of what are the kind of sanctions that could be meted out on the lawyers. We will take this short break. We have in the studio the National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, and he's Dr. Rafulu Ernest Nduka, and he is, of course, telling us, giving us his thoughts about conflicting court orders. Stay with us. We'll continue the show after this short break.
Suleiman, Aya, and Tari, all from the Sulubawa clan, with a unique wealth of culture and deep love for cattle, which truly reflects their sense of family. But over time, everything changes with no lands for grazing. Experience the incredible story of the Fulani people, loved ones they must protect, the journey they must take.
Thank you for staying with us, and you're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. The discussion is about how to strengthen our judicial system, particularly looking at conflicting court orders. And we have in the studio the National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Rafulu Ernest Nduka, in the studio. Now, you mentioned that steps are being taken to deal with some of these issues that we've raised, as regards the antics that some lawyers display in court and all of that. What are some of the steps that have been taken, and just give us a sense of the kind of repercussion that could follow lawyers who are found guilty of engaging in a certain kind of antics?
Okay, now the thing is this. Generally, the rules of professional conduct frown at professional misconduct. And, it could range from several things. It could be maybe the person being disbarred. It could also be come by way of suspension for some years. It could come by way of just some reprimand. If there's nothing against the person, definitely the person will be let off the hook. So it comes in different ways. Now what we are trying to first of all work with, one of the things that I think the laymen have against the lawyers is that they wonder why we take our time in resolving issues. But the thing is this: a lawyer does not just talk anyhow, because you must talk with your facts and with evidence. And so that's why before you make, you speak on a particular issue, or before you make a conclusion on something, you must have investigated that thing and be sure And that's why you cannot appropriate and reprobate at the same time. So whatever you're saying, you stick to that. And so with regards to what the steps the NBA is trying to take, at this stage, what we're trying to do is to investigate. Now, because naturally, somebody will ask, why do you want to investigate when it's already obvious that this thing has gone on? But you see, you can't just, like I said, a lawyer, you deal with evidence and facts. We need to look at the processes that we have filed in the first place. And so when you look at the processes, you look at maybe the record of proceedings of what has happened in court, then you can now be able to determine was there professional misconduct? Somebody who is in, what will a reasonable man say in that situation? Now, because when you talk about professional misconduct, for example, I'll give some example. For example, I see things from a different perspective. You also see this from a different perspective. And so what you think we should not bother going to court over. I may think that this is something we should go to court over. So our perspectives vary. And so that's why we, at the stage that we are in right now, we're trying to investigate, first of all, to find out what has gone wrong, what happened, how were these things, who brought them to court, what was brought before the court. Okay, so that's the first angle, and that's what we are in right now. The NBA has called on a number of the people, like, for example, the section on legal practice and the chairman and some other sections too are working on that at the moment, looking at the processes, investigating that to find out if there were actually evidence of some professional misconduct. So from there, that's the next step. Now, but we also need to understand this, and I think people have this misconception that NBA has some kind of is the arm that disciplines its members. But we need to understand this. What we call the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee. It's a creation of the Legal Practitioners Act, which is a statute, and it's an appendage of the body of benches. So it's not under the NBA. So what the NBA can do is that when we find out that there is an infraction or there is some misconduct on the part of these lawyers, we can send our findings, we can send a petition, we can refer those people to the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee. And they are the ones that have the burden and the responsibility of now conducting a kind of a trial when they conduct the trial, because definitely before you pronounce on somebody's career or liberty or whatever, make a decision, you must try the person. You must give the person an opportunity to speak. So it is the Legal Practitioner, the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee that has the powers to do that. So what we can do, and like I said, we've started the investigation. By the time we are through, the next step would be maybe if there is evidence of that, then we can send it to the LPDC and ask them to now, do what they will do, conduct a trial, and then make their conclusions and pronouncements on the issue with regards to the practitioners who were found culpable in that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and for sharing your thoughts with us. We've been speaking with the National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Rafulu Enes Nduka, and of course over the issues of conflicting court orders. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope to have you again on the
program.
Thank
you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We'll be taking on another break. And then when we come back, we'll take a look at what's trending, actually. There are videos that went online yesterday. Very, very, well, I would say disturbing video. And at this point, I would advise that you take some discretion as you watch this next video. It's what we call trending videos. Take a look.
This man is not this man. Okay? This man, I give this man my life. I give this man my life.
And what's the reason of taking him?
I give this man my everything I give to this man.
Your life as how? Explain.
Thank you. I will explain to you. This man is working with the gap. Are you getting me? So when he's working on the gap with the gap company, he don't have problem there. He's not doing anything to pursue him. Let me lose first. So
come. Fit the man fit very Is the man deserve this punishment from you?
We are going to station. We are going to station.
Is this man deserve the punishment from you?
He deserves it because I need my money. I need my money.
Then you take law into your hand.
I don't take law into my hand. He said he's going to
the way of
money.
Collecting your money is to touch him.
You have the money. You don't want to give him my money. You have the money.
And that's where you return your money from him.
Yes, excuse. I don't want to bring it.
Is it the way you obtain your money from him, collect your money from him?
He said the money is with him. He said it. He said the money is with him.
Yeah, even if the money is with him, is that the way you will collect your money? Answer me now, Oga.
Okay, the money is with him. This is what I told you.
Well, there you have it. Very disturbing video there of someone who claims to have been indebted over the sum of over 4 million naira, deciding that, look, this is the best way to get my money back. I would say this is something that looks like a jungle justice. So I decided not to let our guests go until I get his comment on this. I mean, is this not showing that, you know, people are losing more confidence on the judicial system? Maybe he feels this is the best way to get his money back.
Exactly. That's the first thought that came to my mind, because it's easy to just condemn him alone. This is despicable for somebody to take this step just because he wants to. This is human life we're talking about. This human being could have died as a result of this torture that is passing through. But then it's also a commentary, sad commentary on the judicial system, on the belief and the trust on the security agencies to do the right thing. Now, I'll give an example. When I was doing my thesis, okay, I made some comments about our security agencies and the people not believing in the ability of the security agencies to take charge.
No, but it's the security agents that rescue.
Yes, I will talk about it later. Now, the point I'm trying to make is this: when people believe in the process, okay, the natural thing to do is to go activate that process and ask them to take the steps to recover his money. But because we've gotten to that point where, for example, and that is sad, I'm saying this, but you see, the truth of the matter is this: if this guy maybe decides to go to court, for example, he may find himself in the courts in the process in the next 20 years trying to recover 4-point-something million. And the negative aspect is that by the time he may recover, he may not even recover, because it's one thing to even have judgment in Nigeria. The second thing is how to enforce that judgment. Now, so assuming he gets it, by the time he may be through with all the process, he may have the money, the value must have gone down. He may have spent so much trying to recover this 4-point-something million. I've had people ask you to, I want to recover maybe a debt of 1 million. And you know that the process, he may spend more than 1 million just to recover 1 million. Then it doesn't make sense.
So that's a call to the judiciary system.
Exactly. So the security agencies, the judicial system, the people do not have any belief in them again. And that's why people are taking laws into their hands. So these things have to change. And when they change, you will find people going back again. Maybe he did something that is even physical. Some people resort to what you call spiritual. Some people go to shrines to report people who owe them. And because it's spiritual, nobody knows what is happening to the debtor. So these things we need to wake up. Something is going wrong with the system, okay? Even as he's punished for that, we need to wake up.
All right. Well, that's where we'll end the show today. It's quite a very, very sad one. I hope that people would not have to resort to, taking laws into their hands, because that's what happened. Tying down the person, putting him in that place. How will the money then come out? It's just logic. How you've tied the person who is supposedly owing you. So how is he supposed to go get the money, for you? So it's very, very sad. We hope that people will not have to do that. Let something change in our system, just like you said. With that, we've come to the end of Daybreak on Trust Television. It's been very, very insightful. We hope that you join us again tomorrow for another time on the program. In case you missed, you can catch up on our YouTube and also follow us across all social media handles at Trust TV. Thank you for watching. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Bye for now.